Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to talk something about the checkboxes. Now in the previous tutorials we have learned about the stopwatch application and many such applications, but the thing is that nowhere in any application we have used checkboxes or radio buttons. So this section specially deals with the checkboxes, the radio buttons, the toast, as well as the different stylings of a button. So in this tutorial we are going to learn how a checkbox is going to perform when it is selected, and how we could add in a checkbox to our application so that the user could actually put in his input by using checkboxes. So the first thing which we do is that we create a new Android Studio project, and let's name this project as My Checkbox App. Then let's click next, and let's select the API level 15, click next, and let's go with the blank activity, and let your name of main activity be main activity. And as you could see, this is the basic layout of our application. Now the first thing which we do is that we delete this hello world, and after deleting it we go inside this main activity.java, and also we clean up the code. So we delete this, as well as we delete these methods which we don't need at the moment. And now the first thing which we need to do is that we are actually going to add checkboxes to our layout. So if you have a look over here, you could see that there is an option for adding checkboxes to our application. So we simply select this checkbox right here, drag it and drop it over here. And let's take one more checkbox so that we could select both or either one of them, and we could eventually trigger some event when one of them is selected. Now once we have these two checkboxes, let's go ahead and also add a large text view so that whenever we click a checkbox, something happens to this text view. So for example, let's say we have a checkbox here, and when we select it, a different text is going to appear here, and when we select this thing right here, a different text is going to appear. So once we have added it, let's go ahead and give some names to the checkboxes. So let's say this checkbox is named as, let's say, T. So we select the checkbox and we go to properties and we change it to T. And for the second checkbox, let's name it as, let's say, milk. So as you could see, we have two options in the checkboxes. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to assign IDs to both of these as well as these text view. So we select the first checkbox, go to properties and change this ID to T, and for the milk we are going to change the ID to milk. Now this is a basic example which I am taking for the purpose of a demo, and actually you could add relevant IDs to your checkboxes, but for the sake of simplicity we are just going to go with tea and milk. And for the final ID, that is the ID of this large text right here, we are going to go to properties and we are going to name it as my text view. And once it is done, we are good to go, and we have successfully assigned the properties, or we have successfully assigned the IDs to all of these. And now the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to write in the Java code so as to make some changes to this. But before doing that, what we need to do, or what the basic working of this application would be, is that whenever we select one of these two checkboxes, something should happen. And what should happen is that the text inside the last text should change to something else. So in order to make it happen, what we do is that we select the first checkbox, go to properties, and we are going to add a method to its onClick. So in order to add a method to the onClick, we go to properties and let's name this method as, let's say, onClicked. So we type onClick, and we are going to add in the same method to this as well. So here we also type in onClicked, and make sure that you have named, or you have assigned the same method name to both of these checkboxes. Now once it is done, we switch to this main activity.java and we create another method for this onClicked right here. So we switch here and we type in public void onClicked, and to this we pass in view. And within these methods, the first thing which we actually need to do is that, as we are going to change the text view right here, we are going to have a reference to this text view. So in order to have a reference to the text view, let's name it as text view. Then we type this equals, then we typecast it. So we type text view here as well, and then we type in find view by ID r.id. and the ID of our text view is my text view. So once we have a reference to it, we are good to go, and we could proceed further in order to write the actual code for when the checkbox is checked. So the first thing which we need to do is that we actually need to check if whether either of the two checkboxes is checked or not. So in order to keep track of the checkbox, we are actually going to add a new variable which is called as checked, and this variable is actually going to contain a value which says if the checkbox is checked or not. So the value could be either true or false. So in order to save it, we are going to use a variable of the type boolean. So we type boolean checked equals, and we are going to typecast it. So we type checkbox view, and we are going to use the method which is called as is checked. So we type dot is checked. So once it is done, we have the value if whether the checkbox is checked or not. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we need to create a switch case so as to check which checkbox between the two has been checked. So we type in switch, and to this we are actually going to pass in the ID of the checkbox which is checked. So we type view dot get ID, and this is basically going to extract the ID, and within this switch we are going to type in the cases for each of the checkbox. So first let's add a case for this checkbox which is T, and then we are going to add a case for milk. So we type case, and the first case is going to be for T. So we type r.id.t. If this happens, then actually we want to set the text to I want to drink tea. So in order to do that, initially we check if the checkbox is checked. So we type if it is checked, then we assign a new value to the text view. So we type text view dot set text, and let's add in the text as T, and once it is done we simply break it, and after it we add a second case for milk. So we type case r.id.milk if milk. So if this happens and if it is checked, so we type if checked, then we want to set the text view to milk. So we type text view dot set text, and in the parameters we are going to pass in milk, and finally we are going to break it. So we type break here. So once it is done, we are good to go. So we simply save the code and we run this application on our emulator. So as you could see, our application is up and running, and when we select this checkbox right here which says T, the text view is going to change to T, and if we unchecked it, nothing is going to happen. That is because we have not yet added a condition for what happens when we have unchecked it. And now if we select milk right here, as you could see, the text view has changed to milk. So basically that's how you create a basic checkbox application in Android, and basically you could implement this in creating applications when you want to present the user with multiple options and he could select multiple options. So that's it for this tutorial, and in the next tutorial we'll be actually learning about the radio buttons. So a radio button is different from a checkbox. So for example, in radio button you could actually select only one option from multiple options available. So that's it for this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.